let's bring in international security analyst Jim Walsh. Good to see you, Jim.
Good to see you, Frederica.
We all heard the president say 24/7 access to key nuclear facilities, but given the history of inspections, why should the U.S. or the world even expect that things will be different this time?
Well, I think actually our problem with Iran, we've had lots of problems with Iran, and on the nuclear side, they've been engaging in activities we don't like, that's to say enrichment, but we've always had pretty consistent access. So the International Atomic Energy Agency has been on the ground since going back to 2005, and that joint plan of action that they agreed to back in November of 2013, the interim deal that we've been doing, has gone without a hitch. IAEA inspectors even having daily access to key nuclear facilities and without problem. So the important thing is, if they were to cause problems at these facilities, we would know about it right away, and the fact that we would know about it deters them from trying to pull any shenanigans.
So how stunning is it to you personally that the U.S. and European countries have been able to maintain this kind of unity as it pertains to striking this deal?
You know, that's a great question, and no one has asked me that. And now, you know, I've been at this for 15 years just on this one issue. And you're right, it is stunning. I remember back in 2005, I was sort of surprised that Russia and China got on board with sanctions, right? Everyone thought that they would defect. And then even with problems in Ukraine, the Russians have hung tough on this and stayed in the coalition. I think it really shows you how powerful international diplomacy can be when the great powers stay on the same page. You can get stuff done.
Yeah, at the same time, Russia has wanted, you know, some real easing of the embargo. So what's at stake for Russia?
Well, I think Russia wants easing of a variety of things, but it has to be said about that embargo. I think there's some misinformation about it. I'm glad it was resolved, but that arms embargo was imposed as a nuclear penalty, and so not surprisingly, Iran expected that if they solved the nuclear program, that embargo would come off, but they swallowed hard on that one, made a concession, and so that's going to continue for another 8 years. You know, I think the Russians, obviously, Iran is near their border. They don't want another nuclear weapon state near them. They've always been a pretty good non-proliferation partner in that regard. They like having nuclear weapons. They don't like anyone else having them. So I think their interests are served. I think in the Middle East, everyone's better off if Iran is not going down the nuclear weapons path. And of course, it's a big victory for U.S. non-proliferation policy.
And you've been watching this for many, many years. Are you optimistic about this plan?
You know, I think it's a very solid agreement. When I testified before Congress a couple of weeks ago, before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I said, how are we supposed to judge an agreement? I mean, we could sort of pick things out that might go wrong, you know, in some imaginary world. That's not an assessment. An assessment is, let's compare this agreement to past agreements that have been successful, and let's compare it to the alternatives. And by those two measures, comparing it to past agreements, it's arguably the strongest multilateral non-proliferation agreement ever negotiated, certainly stronger than the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which was a fabulous success.
All right, Jim Walsh, always good to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you. Thank you.
All right.